Have you missed a trick when it comes to using your monochrome camera? Coming up, we head to Italy and I'll try out the Leica M11M Monochrom and show you how to get more from your monochrome camera. Hello, welcome. If you're a regular viewer, you know that I love my vintage film cameras. But what if they stopped making film tomorrow? What would be my camera of choice if I couldn't shoot with film? The answer is the star of today's video, the Leica M Monochrome. Thanks to one of my students who I was teaching during a Leica workshop in Italy, I get to try out the Leica M Monochrome for the second time, and this time give it a proper test so I can give you guys the full answer. Also coming up, I'll show you how using colour filters will allow you to get much more from your monochrome camera. So stay tuned, we'll share that first and then we'll get into the M11 Monochrome, good bits, bad bits, whether I'm going to buy one, all that coming up. Hey guys, Matt here from MrLeica.com. So first, it seems from the Leica workshops that I teach, a lot of photographers using monochrome cameras don't seem to be getting the full benefits from the monochrome sensor. Yes, you can do a lot in post in terms of trying to fix stuff in post and try to improve it with presets and things like that. But there's certain things you need to do at the time of taking the photograph that you can't then fix in post. What I'm talking about is the use of colour filters. When I was using the monochrome, one of the things I like the most is treating it almost like a black and white film camera, like this vintage 1934. When I shoot film for non-portraits, I often use filters because it gives you a different look in camera that you can't then fix later. Most common examples are things like yellow filters or red filters. Red filters will darken a blue sky. If you actually had any blue sky, there's a tiny bit over in the distance. They make the clouds kind of pop a lot more and it increases the contrast of your images. Yellow does the same to a more subtle amount. I did have those filters with me because I was shooting film anyway, so I'll show you some example photos in a second. But if you're using a monochrome camera, definitely invest in a set of filters for your lenses. A great tip is if you buy filters to fit your largest lenses, you then just use step rings to then allow them to fit smaller lenses too. That way you get the best of both. Okay, so let's see what colour filters can do to the Leica M11 Monochrome files. So you can see I had yellow filters and red filters with me, using them on both film and the M11 Monochrome. Here you can see a yellow filter, and it's a push-on style filter which fitted the tripod lens that I was using, video still to come. Here you can see the same photo shot with the no filter, yellow filter and red filter. The yellow filter brightens the yellow walls and darkens the blue sky slightly. The red filter lightens the red bricks and darkens the blue sky even more. Here's another example, keep an eye on the red chimney in the background. So you can see now, again using the different coloured filters, red, blue, red, yellow and no filter. And look at the yellow wall, the blue sky and the red chimney. You see the red chimney just completely transforms when you use the red filter against the now much darker sky. One more example, this time we've got some nice white fluffy clouds on the blue sky, and so watch the difference when you use the red, yellow or no filter. If you use a lot of sky nil photography, the red filter just makes those white clouds really pop. You can see the red gives the most dramatic look, yellow's better than nothing, and then the basic look if you're not using any filter. Now one comment I often get from some of my students is the files out of camera from a monochrome camera, such as the M11 Monochrome, are a bit flat and a bit boring and a bit dull. And so what I'll do is I'll share a series of photos. On the left I'll show the raw file, and then on the right I'll show how the image looks when you add a preset, and it just gives you that bit more crispness and a bit more pop and a bit more clarity and contrast. Let's look at those next. Okay, so one thing to note if you're buying or making presets for a monochrome camera is they are obviously completely different to RGB camera presets. Normally you use the different sliders to change the amount of, say, red, green and the various colours to give you the look that you want. But with a monochrome camera, you're stuck to like a varying degrees of grey, and so you need to use specific monochrome camera presets to try to pull and push those varying grey tones in different directions to try to make the images pop a bit more. These images are edited with my Mr. Leica M10M Monochrom presets, which also work on the Leica Q2 monochrome. And then because they're monochrome presets, you can pretty much use them on any monochrome camera. So they work great on the M11 monochrome and would be fine for the Leica Q3 monochrome also. The sensor size doesn't really matter. It's more about pulling the maximum amount of detail and kind of depth out of your black and white presets. I felt very fortunate to be in Italy to both be seeing the sites and also testing the camera. It gave a great test opportunity for the M11 Monochrome that John kindly lent me, and this was just a one-to-one private workshop, so if ever you want a workshop, feel free to reach out and we can make it work. This was going along the coast, and so I wanted to see whether black and white would really do it justice when you've got such a colourful landscape. Even as a black and white photographer, on occasion, sometimes you think to yourself, I probably should be shooting this in colour because everything just looks so amazing. That being said, the M11 Monochrome did do a great job, and I was happy to the most part. And if you've never visited this part of the world, it's really pretty, even if you just use an iPhone. This is kind of just after sunset, and I was using a red filter to try to pull a bit more from the sky detail. And also red works really well on green because it darkens green to give you more leaf detail. These are a few after dark shots just to show what the Monochrome can do in low light. And now onto the Leica M Monochrome itself. What do I like about this camera and how does it compare to my existing Leica M10? If you're a regular viewer, you know that I pretty much shoot black and white anyway, so when I'm going to shoot a monochrome camera, it would seem like it makes sense because if I'm shooting black and white anyway, you may as well start with a black and white sensor, correct? That sounds like it would make sense, but if you then shoot the same photos with a RGB sensor like a normal Leica M10 and then add a black and white preset in Lightroom, I just use my Mr. Leica presets. I can put a link below if you're a new viewer. Once you put a black and white preset onto your Leica RAW file, you get a nice black and white photo anyway. So I was interested to see, could I replicate the look of the M11 Monochrome with a standard RGB sensor like M10. Now I know there's different resolution and all those things, so we'll ignore that, and we'll do side-by-side test anyway. You decide at the end of this video whether you think the monochrome sensors are worth it purely for the black and white versus colour aspect in good light. If you're going to shoot in complete darkness, yes, the monochrome is better. If you need every single pixel, yes, the monochrome is better because you get the equivalent of more pixels when you use a monochrome sensor compared to a normal sensor. But if you're just shooting in normal daylight, you decide. But for me, I don't need a camera that shoots in complete darkness. Let's look at the pictures. Okay, so for each example, try and work out which is the M10 and which is the M11 Monochrome. This is just hanging outside my hotel window. Both photos look pretty similar to my eyes, but make up your own mind. The answer is M10 on the left, M11 on the right. You see the difference in the file size, 24 megapixels versus 60 megapixels. Example number 2, any difference? Again, M10 left, M11 Monochrome on the right. Third example, this is a crop in, then the full size image. To me, they're pretty much near identical. Once I had my Mr. Leica presets to both files, I was more than happy with the M10 images. So those are the pictures. What did you think? Let me know in the comments, did you prefer the M10 files or the M11 Monochrome files? As you probably noticed, they're pretty much the same anyway, so it doesn't matter a huge amount which camera you use. Whenever people contact me via the blog, I always recommend an RGB camera over a monochrome for examples like this. You go on holiday and there's just the most amazing colours you've ever seen, and there you are stuck with a black and white camera. Your iPhone footage looks like this, but you get back and all your pictures are black and white. The beauty of an RGB sensor is you get the best of both. You can either have really nice colour photos, as you can see on the left, or you can flip them to black and white, as you can see on the right. The left files are the raw files from the M10, and the right are just with my black and white preset added. And so the moment of truth, will I be getting a Leica M10 Monochrome anytime soon? The answer is no. I think I'm going to stick with my M10. Now, I think there is a caveat with this. Do you enjoy the taking pictures part of photography, which is why I enjoy using these wacky little vintage Leica cameras and lots of other various film cameras? Or is only the final image important? If we enjoy more of a manual process, I think the monochrome is nice because you can attach the different color filters and you feel like you're actually doing something, you're adding to the image. It feels more hands-on and more real, whereas with the color sensor, you're just taking the pictures and then you try and fix it afterwards. Well, I did like the fact that the monochrome felt almost analog, but not quite. But at the same time, if you're only looking at the final images, once it came down to it, I'm like, it was fun to use the camera, but I'm just as happy with my M10 files. Things I loved about the M11, which at some point will probably make me upgrade to an M11 standard one, or M11P in particular, is I love all the P cameras because you've got the nice engraving on the top plate, a little bit like that, which I think is really nice. It gives a nice touch. It's a small detail, but I think it adds a lot to the overall look of the camera. I like the stealthy front as well when you have the P versions without the red dot. And then M11s in general, I like the extended battery life compared to the M10. I like the new style base plate where you just flick the button and it's more like an SL where you just pop the battery out and it's really quick and easy to do. I like the lightweight of the black M11. It's even lighter than my M10. I like the quieter shutter of the M11. I love the USB-C charging. That was a massive bonus and I wish all cameras had that. Sadly, a lot of my cameras are older models, so I don't yet have that luxury. But when we were in Italy, John had lent me the camera overnight and he's like, do you need me to go back and get the charger for you? I'm like, no, don't worry, I've got my USB-C cable for my, I think it's my iPad. And so I just plugged it into my iPad charger and woke up and it was ready to go again. So love that aspect of the camera. Big thanks to John for lending me the camera. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, a huge thanks to my awesome patrons. I do have a huge backlog of videos coming, so hit subscribe if you want to see those. See you in a few days. Bye.